Do you ever feel like you're missing something in your photography? Like everybody else knows the secret ingredients except you? The truth is, you don't need the latest camera or a bag full of expensive gear. What you do need are just 7 simple things, some of which cost nothing at all, that will completely change the way that you shoot. I've been a professional photographer for years, and here are the things every beginner photographer needs. Alright my friends, so first thing first, and this is without a doubt the most important aspect or a thing that you will need as a beginner photographer. And this might come as a massive surprise and a shocker to you, because what I'm talking about is of course a camera. I know, did your brain like melt a little bit and leak out of your ear? Now, jokes aside, then of course, without a camera, you're not taking any pictures. But the thing is, in my opinion, you do not need the latest and greatest or the most expensive thing when you're just starting out. What I do recommend that you check out is a camera, like for instance, this one here, where you can change lenses with interchangeable lenses. In my opinion, if you want to get serious about photography, it's really nice to be able to pick lenses based on whatever it is that you want to shoot. So one of these, very, very nice. Another thing that I also keep in mind is a camera where you can manually control things. Not because manual mode is the best thing ever, but it's really nice to have the options to be able to change aperture, shutter speed, and of course the ISO as well. Now I know that there are endless amount of options out there when it comes to picking a camera, and it feels pretty overwhelming. And later I will share with you a few options. But this one that I'm holding right here, this is Sony a6400. This one or the previous model a6300 or even the a6100 or a6000, all great beginner cameras in my opinion. One thing to keep in mind is that all camera brands nowadays make good cameras, and in my humble opinion, it doesn't really matter what you go with. Just make a decision and pick one and then learn how to use it. That is the most important aspect. If you don't like the system, you know what? It's not like you're bound to use it and you will go to jail if you switch. You can always sell it, you know, and pick up something else. Now, the next thing that you will then need is a lens, and preferably a vertical lens, not a vertical lens, a versatile lens. See, English, I am getting a little good at it. Now, some people will argue with me here, but I do recommend a zoom lens instead of a prime lens. The difference is that a zoom lens, then you can zoom between different focal lengths. For instance, this is a 16mm to 28mm. So you have all of them focal lengths in one lens. While this one right here, this is actually a super zoom lens. This has 28mm all the way to 200mm in one lens. While a prime lens, like for instance, this one right here, this is a 35mm APS-C lens. It's just 35mm. So you might then be thinking, why would anybody buy a prime lens when you can get multiple different lenses in one lens? Well, the trade-off is that prime lenses are usually sharper, usually have better image quality, and they usually have lower aperture as well. Plus, there is an argument to be made that getting a 35mm and understanding what a 35mm does, and also getting then a 60mm or maybe 50mm is good, because then you know exactly what those focal lengths are, because you're constantly hammering on it. But in my opinion, and especially for my style of photography, which is a lot of run and gun landscape photography, I'm hiking a lot, I'm on the go, and I don't want to carry with me multiple different lenses, then in my opinion, a versatile zoom lens is so good. When you're just starting out, you can of course buy a kit lens. There's nothing wrong with that. They tend to be a little bit less image quality, but that does not mean that you cannot make good photos with a kit lens. There is some sort of a consensus out on the internet where people go like, kit lenses suck. They're not as good, but they definitely don't suck. If we go back to my example of getting a Sony APS-C as a first camera, then in my opinion, the Sigma 18 to 50mm f2.8 is a fantastic lens to start with. Then you have pretty wide angle, or like fairly wide angle, not ultra wide angle, but pretty wide look, all the way to pretty nice 50mm APS-C look on a tiny lens. And there are other lenses as well, but this is what I would think about in the beginning. Get something versatile. Now, the next thing that you will need is also really important, because without it, you're not going to have a good time, because you cannot really do anything with it. And that is, of course, batteries, and a lot of batteries, and SD cards as well. I don't have SD cards here in my bag. They will keep the video coming, but imagine that I have an SD card in my hand, you know? Now, when it comes to batteries, then keep a few spare batteries. I was out shooting the other day and I forgot to bring my extra batteries. So the best tip I can give you is to bring a few and then take at least one of them, have it fully charged, and hide it in your camera bag, all right? Or your backpack. You don't even need a specialized camera bag if you don't want to, but hide it in your bag, because when shit hits the fan, then you know you're safe. And do the same to an SD card, and especially to SD card, because batteries, they do deplete, but SD cards just have 2, 3 hidden in your bag at all times. Now, when it comes to SD cards, then you might be thinking, what SD card should I get? Of course, you can look at the storage, how much space, and that is something that you will have to decide yourself. How much space do you want to have? I cannot sit there and tell you what to do with that. But one thing that is good to know is the different speeds of them. You have V30, or most often you have V30, V60, and V90. What does that mean? Well, V30 is the least fastest of these three that is the slowest of these three that I just mentioned. And it is totally fine if you are shooting 4K footage up to 30 frames per second. If you aren't going up to 4K, like 120 frames per second, then V30 is more than enough. And for photography, it does not really start to matter until you're doing a lot of burst shooting, a lot of continuous shooting, which is for sports photography usually, or wildlife, whatever. Or if you just like to like spray and pray, you know? Nothing wrong with that, baby. But most of the beginner cameras that you will see have maybe 10 to 11 frames per second burst mode, and that is more than enough for V30 in most cases. If you want to get something faster, or you plan to shoot 4K 120 frames per second, which allows you to get ultra slow motion, then you need at least V60. All right, so just keep that in mind when you're buying your SD cards. And then V90, I don't think that is total overkill for almost everybody who's beginning. Unless you are a don that decides that, hey, I am gonna film in 8K from day one, and I'm never gonna touch that 4K bullshit that you guys are doing, you know? If you're one of them, go with a V90. But for the rest of us mere mortals, I think V30, V60, if we plan on shooting something a little bit more heavier, is more than enough, all right? Now, number 4, and this is incredibly important in my opinion, and that is to have some sort of a way to edit your photos. In my opinion, the art of capturing the photos itself is only half of the work. After you captured a raw file, you take it into the computer and you edit it and you bring it out to life. Now you can edit it just a little bit or a lot, depending on the style of what you want to do. But editing a little is, at least in my opinion, very, very important aspect, or at least I enjoy it a ton. I think it's so much fun. Now I do have a free 33-day email series where I send out one short tip a day that will massively help you level up your editing game, whether you're a beginner or advanced. It's just filled of everything that I know. I mean, I've been editing photos on pretty much daily basis for 10 years. And as I said, this series is totally free, and you can find more information in the description down below. Now, what happens then is that you're faced with a choice. What editing software should I choose? There are many out there, and I know this is confusing. Personally, I use Adobe Lightroom. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I also use a little bit of Photoshop. I've used it as an amateur, hobbyist, just for the pure enjoyment of it, and also as a professional. And this program, in my opinion, is great. It's not free, and there are some free versions out there. If you guys know any free versions that you like, drop them in the comments down below, and let's help each other out. But as I said, Lightroom, that's where I'm at, and it's what I recommend. It's tremendously powerful, and I'm able to completely transform my photos with just a few sliders. On this channel, I do have so many free Lightroom tutorials that will massively help you out. So after watching this video, feel free to check them out. I do also have a complete Lightroom Masterclass that is everything that I've learned over the last decade of editing photos put into a simple step-by-step course that is easy to follow along. At the time of the recording, almost 300 photographers have gone through it, and I can guarantee that if you do too, your editing skills will massively evolve in just 30 days. If not, I will give you your money back. Yes, I am that confident. This is by far the best editing information that I've ever put out. Anyway, get yourself some sort of a software. Next up, a low-key thing that is really nice to have with you or getting when you're just starting out. Not totally needed, but you could be thankful when you do need it, and that is one of the most or least sexy things that I can think about when it comes to photography, and that is a tripod. Now, a tripod, as I said, it's not a sexy thing. It's also a little bit boring. I do most of my photography handheld. I like moving around, taking photos, but there are those moments when a tripod is just so good. Plus, there are multiple types of landscape photography that you cannot really do without a tripod. And there is just something about also composing an image and really taking your time to figure it out with a tripod. And then, of course, when it comes to some techniques like focal length blending, time blending, stacking, bracketing, and all that stuff that you will get into once you start to enjoy this thing as much as at least I do, then a tripod is essential. Now, what tripod are you going to get then? In my opinion, I like the philosophy of buy once instead of buying 2 times. That is not a philosophy, but you understand what I went going with. But first thing you have to ask yourself is, what type of photos are you going to do? And then base a decision out of that. And that is also with all gear that you will pick. I have a Peak Design carbon fiber tripod. It is way too expensive in my opinion, but it is so good. I've had it since probably it came out. I had it for years. There's not a single scratch on it. It's so lightweight. It's tremendously lightweight, which is so good in my style of photography, which is a lot of run and gun and all that. I do enjoy. I even have it on right here. It's in my here. It's my camera is sitting on. I use it in the studio as well. I should probably have a heavy duty tripod in here, but I just like this little thing. But there are multiple tripods out there, and I do suggest getting one. After that is another incredibly important thing to have, which is also totally free, and that is a basic understanding of light. You see, my friend, gear won't save you if you don't learn how light works. As simple as that. And in my opinion, every beginner needs to study how light shapes a subject and how it changes throughout the day and how light creates mood. Basically, photography is all about light. And in my experience, the best photographers are the ones that understand light the best. Now, light goes really, really deep. You might think, oh, it's just a sunlight, but no, my friend, it goes really, really deep. But getting a basic understanding, for instance, understanding the quality of light. If you're outdoors, is it harsh light, midday sunlight? Is it soft light, cloudy? It's very good to know, because that changes not only the entire mood of the shot, but also how the contrast and how the light hits on your subjects, whether it is a portrait or a mountain, whatever. Very good to understand that too. Then also one thing that is super basic is to understand in what direction is the light coming from. My friend, I remember when I didn't even understand that. But for instance, here in the studio, I have my lamp here set in 45-degree angle from me. Why in 45-degree angle? Because that gives me a little shadow on this face, which creates contrast, which creates depth and makes this scene more dramatic and more interesting. You understand? And then I have another light there with a little bit of blue hitting my features on this side here, which I think is pretty. I like that. Outdoors is the same thing. I mean, once you have established a subject, think about where is the sun coming from, how is it affecting the scene, and then use that to your advantage. So study light just a little bit. It does not have to be that you spend like hours every single day reading. Just a little bit of studying, pick up a few tricks, go outside, think about it, do it a few times, and your understanding of light becomes so much better, and it will directly translate into your images. I promise you, my friend, please do it. Now, the seventh thing that you will need is, in my opinion, the most important aspect when it comes to taking good photos. And the best part is that this one is also totally free. And that is, my friend, that you need patience and building some sort of a practice routine. I know a little bit boring, but hear me out. You see, photography, it's a skill that you build. And if you commit to shooting regularly, experimenting, and of course, making a ton of mistakes, then you learn and grow so much faster than any piece of gear that you can buy. Nothing, in my opinion, beats the reps of going out and practicing. Then, of course, watching tutorials like this one, watch that Icelandic guy, smack all of the like buttons, smack that like button, my friend. But actively seeking out information and then going outside and applying that information. And then one thing that I think is so underrated is once you come back and edit photos, it's not just about editing. When you're editing, you're really taking a look at your photo and you're reviewing them with a critical eye. And if you are a little bit brutal with yourself in the editing process, you will spot a ton of mistakes, which will be like, I maybe should have moved a little bit here. Now I see that the light is hitting a little bit, few degrees, not as good as it could have been. So next time you step just 10 meters in this direction, bam, totally different image. This you learn by practice. But as I said at the beginning, the most important piece of this all is picking your first camera. However, problem is there's simply just too many choices and it feels so overwhelming. But the good news is that I've broken down exactly which Sony cameras are the best for beginners to pick up in this day and age. And you can watch this video right here to find out.